Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Christina McHale, and thank you for participating in today's 860th Justice Clearinghouse webinar. During today's webinar, Bryan Harkey is here to talk about getting started in the animal control and protection field. Are you interested in a career in animal welfare field services, commonly referred to as animal control? Well, if you are, then you are in luck. Today, we'll be focusing on what you need to know, how to prepare for your first position in the animal control field. This will include key topic areas such as reading and understanding the job description, gaining experience and training prior to your first day, and preparing for the job interview. Our speaker today is Bryan Harkey. Bryan Harkey is the Field Operations Manager for the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department's Animal Care and Control Division. Bryan has been with the department for 22 years and started his career as an ACO. During his tenure, Bryan has been involved in community outreach, multiple emergency response deployments, and countless misdemeanor and felony animal cruelty cases. Currently, Bryan oversees the department's entire enforcement section, which includes hiring and training new animal care and control officers. I do also want to take a moment to thank our friends and partners for helping with today's webinar. Today's webinar is done in partnership with the NACA, with the Animal Care and Control Association. We truly appreciate working with organizations like NACA who are so committed to enhancing and growing the profession. And now, briefly, before we begin, I'd like to share with you some information about the Justice Clearinghouse. The Justice Clearinghouse is the only peer-to-peer educational program for justice professionals that emphasizes the multidisciplinary nature of an effective justice system. Through our year-round virtual conference, our audience and subscribers begin to develop a comprehensive understanding of the justice system while breaking down its many misconceptions. While our events are free to attend live, our subscribers receive 24/7 access to over 800 recorded webinars and are eligible to receive certificates of attendance that can be used when seeking continuing education credits. So if you're not presently a subscriber, I would invite you to join today and support our work. And the last thing I want to address with everybody are some basic housekeeping items. First, this event is being recorded and the formal presentation is scheduled to last about 60 minutes and will be available to subscribers on the Justice Clearinghouse website. Second, this is a listen-only event, but you can type as many questions as you have in the GoToWebinar toolbar. We'll take as many of your questions as possible at the end of the webinar. Next, if you do experience audio issues during our webinar today, such as the audio cutting in and out intermittently, consider dialing in using the phone number that was included in your email invite. After dialing in, when the system asks you for a PIN, you can simply bypass that by hitting the pound key. And also, just to let you guys know, our speaker has provided several handouts as part of today's webinar, so don't forget to download those from the GoToWebinar toolbar. And as always, we love learning about our Justice Clearinghouse community, and so just by way of a trial run today, I'd like to ask this question. So, what social media do you regularly use? And today's polling question is a select all that apply. So your options are YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook. And again, remember, it's a select all that apply. And by the way, folks, if you're having a hard time checking those boxes on the screen there, you might need to exit out of full screen mode so that you can check those boxes and cast your votes. Oh, wow, you guys are doing fantastic. This is great. In the interest of time, because I know that Bryan has a lot of material to get through today, I'm going to go ahead and close the polling and share the results. Interesting, 53% of you use YouTube, 37% of you use Instagram, 16% of you use LinkedIn, 12 on Twitter, and 81% of you use Facebook. Thanks so much for doing that, guys. We really appreciate it. And finally, after today's webinar, there will be a follow-up survey, and we do ask that you complete it. Your feedback helps us shape everything that we do here at Justice Clearinghouse. And so with that, I'd like to turn our presentation over to our instructor for the day. Welcome, Bryan. It is all yours.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate the introduction. Hello, everybody. My name is Bryan Harkey. I am the field ops manager for Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department Animal Care Control Division. That's in Charlotte, North Carolina. Just to kind of give you an idea, like what my facility, how my facility is ran. I have I'm responsible for approximately 32 animal control officers and 5 field supervisors. Charlotte's roughly about 2 million people. That's including the city and county. And our calls for service on a regular basis, just raw numbers, not including things like investigation follow-ups or community outreach things, are roughly around 35,000 calls per year. So I mean, we're not the biggest, we're not the smallest, we're kind of in between, but we try to reach all aspects of the community every way we can. So let's go ahead and get started with the magical world of animal control and field protection.
Hey, Bryan,
So,
I'm still showing that we have the polling question up for some reason. So I'm going to try something here. I'm going to take back control as presenter for
yeah,
just a second, guys, and then I'm going to make you the presenter again. I do apologize,
give me
folks.
a back up, or are we good?
Yeah, let's take a look here. Can you go ahead and accept the dialog box that just showed up on your screen?
Sure.
Excellent. Okay, now we see your screen. Carry on. Thanks so much.
All right. Just kind of getting back into this, getting started. Just an overview of what animal control is. Animal control, animal services, whatever you want to call it. It's an entity in charge of responding to the request for help of animals, ranging from wild animals, dangerous animals, or other animals in distress. Individual who works for such an entity is what used to be called a dog catcher, but generally now it's called an animal control officer, animal services officer. Well, we tried to get rid of that whole dog catcher mentality. Our duties and functions are, without insulting anybody's intelligence, you pretty much understand. We basically deal with people and their animals. We look for owners and try to get them reunited with their pets. We sometimes enforce like county city licenses, microchip scanning, spay neuters, different things of that nature. We also try to work with local law enforcement, such as wildlife, to help with rehabilitation of wildlife animals and things like that. Animal control services may be provided by your government or through a contract with Humane Society. Like here where I'm at in Charlotte, we are a division of the police department. Other counties, other small cities may use their sheriff's department, or they may have like a standalone entity. It just kind of differs from state to state and county to county. Officers may work for or with the police and sheriff's departments, park recreation departments, health department. That's another one that you're going to work closely with, and usually involving animal bites. Most common job requirements are prior experience handling animals, such as like a farm hand or veterinary assistant, animal trainer. Training is primarily on the job. Basically, when you come to this type of field, you're going to learn the majority of how to do your job while training with like an FTO, which is a field training officer. There are some jurisdictions like in Virginia, North Carolina, Texas, where they require formal or continuing educations available by your community colleges or trade associations. Some animal cruelty investigators are specially trained by police officers. Moving into the next section. So most animal controls are kind of divided into 3 branches. You usually have your field operations section, and then you'll have your sheltering operations section, and then your administrative section. Obviously, your field operations is basically made up of animal control officers. They go by different names: humane officers, cruelty investigators, or animal service officers. A lot of the things you see on your screen here, such as cruelty investigators or livestock officers or field supervisors, and rabies and controls, bite investigators, things like that. A lot of these duties are actually all the same job. There are some agencies that are big enough to have like individual people handle each individual task, but like for my people, for instance, an animal control officer may wear different hats. He may go to a cruelty investigation, but then have to do a bite investigation later on. And they also can join teams like emergency response teams. Like the photo shown is from when we went to a deployment after a hurricane, and we were basically wading through waist deep water in multiple neighborhoods, looking for stranded animals and trying to feed those animals that weren't like in water. So sheltering operations is another section of an animal control division. Certain jobs listed, such as like kennel supervisor or operations manager, shelter managers, animal care technicians, animal care attendants, euthanasia technicians. A lot of these jobs are also, included in one job task. So you may be a technician, an animal care technician that has to euthanize or groom. There's all these are working parts of an actual animal shelter. The best thing about our shelter that I have, and I have spent the majority of my adult life in this same place after 22 years, is that all of these are in one way, shape, or form working together. So what an officer may experience in the field, he can come back and share that information with a shelter worker, a shelter technician, whether it be about the dog's temperament, what the experience was with the dog while it was out there, if it was injured, how it was injured, how it was being held, how it was being kept. All these things kind of flow hand in hand so that, we can better micromanage the amount of animals or the types of animals or their situations when they come in and leave. So it gives us a better opportunity to figure out what happened to them, how to fix it, and then how to work with them or train them in a way to get them out of here as a live release so that they could be adoptable. The last part of our branch for how animal control is usually set up is office operations or administrative area. Now, this is made up of a bunch of different people who do a bunch of different tasks. Obviously, data processing clerks, dispatchers, receptionists, adoption counselors, public relations like PR. A lot of these things we need in place, and most shelters use these. They have people that are in place in these areas to help, like with all kinds of things coming and going. So you have public relations that helps with PR for like any type of news that comes through, local news channels that want to talk to people about different situations or investigations that they're working on. And this is helpful because obviously it keeps officers out in front of the camera, which is horrible, usually winds up to be a horrible idea. And you have other people that help with, like your executive secretaries, that help with the processing of citations and paperwork and subpoenas and things of that nature, because all these different tasks can't be handled by just one particular section. So, the breakdown of these is when you can work all together with three branches, it makes everything a whole lot better, especially when you're dealing with like social media and them being bombarded by a particular story with animals that come in, and you have somebody that can kind of be the frontline person to stay stay ahead of that and work with that with the officer. And then you have the sheltering staff that can help update when how the animal's being treated and things of that nature. So the 5-point focus of an animal control program is essentially, it's number one, public health. And this comes down to basically rabies, making sure your community is constantly, being safe and providing rabies shots, and making sure that rabies cases or exposures to rabies is paramount and being watched over. This is something we spend a lot of time on. This is usually a time sensitive situation because Rabies has an inoculation period. I mean, basically has a dormancy period of about 10 days. So these things have to be monitored and closely watched when you have an animal in quarantine, or when you have a wild animal that's been exposed to a domesticated animal. So public health is the number one priority for most animal controls. Obviously, number two is public safety. So you're talking about your aggressions and your attacks, and people getting injured, children getting injured, public safety issues, basically just allowing animals that are that could cause harm to other people's animals, or other people's family members, or whatever the case. You're making sure that is paramount, and that is also covered. Your local law enforcement portion of this for animal control is basically local ordinances, and state laws. That's basically what you're tasked to enforce day in and day out. The other part of it is education, but as far as the law enforcement aspects, your primary job is enforcing whatever your local ordinance is and whatever the state laws for your particular state are. Obviously, it goes without saying, protection of pets and people with education and intervention. I mean, this is pretty much your bread and butter. What you're out there to do is you're helping people figure out the best ways to help their animals, or taking their animals in worst case scenarios because they refuse to do so. But you'll spend a lot of time doing that. You have to wear a lot of hats as an animal control officer. And to be honest with you, I didn't think coming into this job 22 years ago that would be the case. I really didn't know what to expect. I actually was going to be a police officer or work on a ranch somewhere out west, because I've rode horses all my life. But coming into this, I didn't really realize how uneducated people were about animals. So you're going to spend a lot of time just learning and teaching and evolving so that you can help people figure this out. Agency interaction and communication and cooperative endeavors. This is a big one. This is new. I've been here 22 years, like I said, and over the past 10 or so years, this has really been like the biggest growth that I've seen in animal control, as far as using like local news channels or pet stores or partnerships with the business community. You need to use those if you can find them, if you have people that can work with that and get involved, because they'll support you. They'll give you a lot of money that can help you do a lot of things inside of a shelter that normally your government and taxpayers' money is not going to allow you to do. A lot of the things that we do here at our facility is based off of these donations, and a lot of them are pretty good. And we use all this money to filter it directly back into our community, and it's really helped. It's really helped a whole lot. I think the NACA, the National Animal Care Control Association, sums it up perfectly with the 5 points of animal control program. Animal control is a program that effectively treats the symptoms while seeking to eliminate the causes by compassionately using the tools of education and enforcement. I mean, that's basically it in a nutshell. You're basically treating the symptoms in order to try to eliminate, compassionately using the tools of education and enforcement. It's just, I mean, you can't say any better than that. Typical agencies that an animal service officer will assist. And again, after spending so much time doing this, I never thought in a million years that I would work hand in hand with half of these people, but you will if you were able to get a job in working with an animal services division. Law enforcement, all the time, every day. You will go on calls with police officers every single day of the week. It never fails. They are always going to need you to help them, and a lot of times it is not fun. A lot of times you're going to be going into situations where it's, unfortunately it's suicides or deaths, or with sheriff's department it'd be evictions. you're taking animals out of houses where there's domestic violence situations or DWIs, and you're getting them out of cars in the middle of the night. These things, it happens all the time. Social services and child services, same thing. You're really that one's gonna hurt, but you're gonna be involved. You may even have to call these two agencies to assist you with some of the things that you may see that they aren't even aware of. I personally have been on situations that I never thought I'd see it, riding down the road in like 7 a.m. and there's like a child, like an infant standing on the sidewalk that I had to stop and help. So, I mean, just because you work for animal services doesn't mean that that's the only thing that you're going to be dealing with day in and day out. It's really all over the place. Another one is state wildlife officers. I mean, this pretty much goes hand in hand. They're dealing with wildlife, and unfortunately, so are you, especially if you live in a city or an urban environment. We pull deer out of grocery stores, usually 2 or 3 times a year. Schools, we pull them out of schools. They get stuck on fences daily. I mean, these are things that you as an animal control officer are going to be dealing with, mainly because there's going to be more of you than there ever will be state wildlife officers or game wardens. There's just not enough of them to help cover the amount of wildlife, especially during like their peak seasons, like deer rut and stuff like that. You are going to be tasked to handle most of that stuff. EMS and fire, same thing. You're going to have to take possession of dogs that have been trapped in house fires. These are things that you're going to deal with all the time. Similar to the photograph and a few slides before, the state emergency agencies, you're going to be, if you get called out, if your county has an emergency response team, and I think most counties are kind of responsible for that now through FEMA. They'll have like emergency response teams. A lot of times, if you have small agencies, those agencies will group together county by county to create, these teams. And if you have to respond to natural disasters of any kind, these are situations where you'll deal with emergency agencies or FEMA's. Yeah. Health department, obviously that speaks for itself. They're usually the regulators of all the rabies cases that you're going to have to deal with inside of your county or city. So you'll work with them regularly for rabies cases and quarantining animals on a regular basis. Believe it or not, HSUS and ASPCA, a lot of times this really affects you if you are in a very rural county and you have and you come across like puppy mills or hoarders or things of that nature, and your county is ill-equipped to work with or ill-equipped to handle like large quantity of animals, the HSUS and the ASPCA will gladly come out and assist you. And usually when that happens, it's a mess, but you'll get to work hand in hand with all these people, these national organizations. These are things that at some point in your career, if you decide to do this job for a while, you're going to deal with them. FBI, believe it or not, cruelty cases, I believe a law was passed not too long ago. Cruelty cases actually are all filtered through the FBI. So if you have a true cruelty case involving a person that has injured an animal, and you had to create a case base or an investigation based off of that, your report is supposed to be turned into the FBI. So we do that regularly here in Charlotte. Most of it, we just create a different report that goes through a different program, and they get their hands on all of our cruelty investigations, especially if there's merit to them. Airport agents. Some of you may deal with this, some of you may not, but basically we are right next to an airport, and they call us all the time because dogs that people travel with get loose, monkeys that people travel with get loose, and we are always dealing with something from the airport breaking its kennel or breaking its cage and getting loose. That may affect you, it may not. It's just things that we've come across that I figured I would share with you. Code enforcement officers, they do a totally different job normally, but they do handle a lot of zoning stuff, and a lot of zoning stuff can intertwine with animal control ordinances. And then lastly, but probably not everything, is hospital employees. People get attacked get bitten, they immediately go to the hospital. People that go to the hospital that are elderly, sometimes they fight and argue and they want their pet with them. We wind up dealing with them a lot, trying to get keys to people's houses so that we can get in and take care of their pets or remove them when they are hospitalized. So that's always a thing. I probably touched on some of these. There's a ton more things that you're probably going to face in your career that I didn't even mention. Salary range. This is probably a little old, especially if you look down there at the bottom where it says 12,000 to 24,000 in these small communities. Honestly, that's probably part-time. I kind of pulled this slide and this information based off of what I was finding nationally. But 50 to 80, I would say probably more in the realm of 35 to 80 is probably what you're going to be looking at career base wise. You know, you're probably going to start out 30s to 40s, and then you'll increase yearly after that. It's hard to give you an exact amount because salary ranges or earning potential is really based off of where you're from or where you're planning on working. If it's a larger city, obviously they're going to have more opportunities for promotions and things of that nature. And if you're in a smaller community, it may just be based on just the fact that you are their animal control officer and you are tasked to do the majority of the animal control duties as well as the sheltering duties. So, this is kind of like a huge range to try to cover. All right. Educational and training requirements. Most animal control officers basically just require a high school or GED, entry-level positions. Obviously, college degree and a field of study related to the nature of the job is preferred. Most positions require ongoing specialized training. Certified euthanasia techs, certified chemical capture, National Animal Control Association certifications. These are all good things. NACA, the ACO1, the ACO2 trainings, these are really good trainings. These cover basically every aspect of an ACO's actual job, from entry level to all the way up to, I believe, chemical immobilization. Obviously, you can get, you could also look into criminal justice degrees. That's the kind of the route that I took. You can have a bachelor's degree in animal science or a master's in animal science. These are degrees that you're probably looking more towards, like being an actual director when you start getting into those phases. The NACA ACO1 and ACO2 is probably covers the most as far as learning every aspect of the job. Criminal justice degrees are good, especially in teaching you your state laws or how to interpret those laws. But yeah, most of your training when it comes to being an animal control officer is going to be in the field, because I have people here that work for me. Some of them have master's degrees and they're ACOs or they're supervisors, and some of these people are really, really smart. But when they first started here, when they needed to learn how to do this job, they had to go through the FTO process to figure all these steps out. So the best training that you're going to get is while you're actually physically doing the job. Advancement opportunities. So animal control is one of the fastest growing professions in the country. This area involves public health and safety, rabies, other zoonotic diseases and animal bites, and law enforcement, local, state, and national laws pertaining to animals. Smaller, like I said earlier, smaller communities are usually limited in positions and advancement opportunities. Small cities sometimes operate 1 or 2 person departments. Mid-sized to larger cities offer the most variety opportunities for advancement within animal control structure. Employees entering the animal control field in the 2000s that remain dedicated and committed to the profession have potential to be administrators in the future. Animal services profession is one of that travels. These skills are needed in every county across the country. So you can take what you learn where you're at or where you start, and you can usually use these anywhere in the country. When I hire people on a regular basis, there's certain things that I look for, and animal handling experience is a big one. I mean, and why so? Well, because that's what you're going to be doing. I don't want, it's not that I don't want or can't teach, but if you come to me with that skill set, then obviously I'm going to dig a little deeper into your background to find out if this is something that would be a good fit for you. So, if this is something that you're serious about and you want to continue down this field and you want to start, you can look into these MACA courses, some of which are prerequisite for, employment in the first place, but not everywhere, mandates that. You can get hired and then they have you attend these trainings afterwards or give you so many years to complete them. But obviously, what I do here in North Carolina would easily transfer to Colorado just with the skill set that I have and what they're looking for. So this job is one that travels, kind of like welding. So pros and cons of working in the field of animal control. So I'm not going to insult your intelligence by reading every single one of these, but obviously you can understand that, you get to help animals. You get to help protect people. You get to help animals. But that's not all this job is about. You are out there, just helping people in general. Now, the upside is that you do get to help animals, which is pretty cool. And if you like dogs or horses or cats or any of that, then, you're going to have a pretty good day. You get to help enjoy figuring out a plan for the animal. You bring something in, you're going to get attached to it in one way, shape, or form, or at the very least, you're going to want to see how it ends up. Now, it gives you the opportunity to kind of play a role in that if you can. I mean, to some extent. There's also opportunities to rescue animals from cruelty situations. You get to prosecute individuals that often torture or abuse animals. Sometimes they don't know what they're doing and they don't know better, but unfortunately, that's part of the hard part of this doing this job is trying to get people to understand that lack of being educated isn't necessarily a freebie. Impounded animals are being provided proper humane care at the shelter until the pet owner can come reclaim them. These are good things so they don't get hit by cars. So you can't think of just picking up an animal all the time as being a bad thing. Most of the time, if an animal's loose, it's going to have a bad ending. It never really ends well, especially if you're in an urban environment. Animal control work is never dull. There's a challenge, and basically it's never ending. It is never ending. I've been doing it for 22 years. It never ends. I assure you that. But it's never dull. There's always something different every day, every week. Even me, I sit in an office, although I do a lot of other things, but most of my job requires me to oversee all these officers and supervisors. So I spend a lot of time in office, but even my days, they're always different. At any given time, you could go on any kind of call. Doesn't matter. It's always going to be unusual. You never really know what kind of challenge is going to be presented before you, or how many people it's going to take to see it through. And sometimes they're boring. A lot of times you do a lot of things and nothing ever happens. You show up and you don't have anything to do out there. That's kind of a good call, actually. But other times, all heck breaks loose and it requires everybody that's on duty that day to figure it out. Let's see here. Animal control employees in the 2000s have benefited from the efforts of those preceding us. They professionalized this field of work into careers, and we can be proud of. So when I first started here a long time ago, we were dog catchers. We drove trucks, and it was that is exactly what we were. And over the past 10 years or so, everything's kind of really, it's really changed. It's really progressed. And now we are a little bit more professional in how we do these things. And we have better outcomes and we have more community buy-in. And we are providing services because this is not a a gainful employment, meaning that we're not looking to make money. And it took a long time for people to get on board with that concept and do what was better for, do what was best for animals. And that's something we're trying to grow in this, nationally. And there's a lot of us that are constantly communicating nationally. So this is a good time to try to enter this field so that this continues to progress. The cons for this job are also pretty obvious, and I'm not going to insult your intelligence by reading every one of these either. But it's frustrating. It's frustrating to know you often satisfy a person by making a complaint, but make the pet owner angry when you do your job, and that does make people upset. People do not like to hear the truth. They do not like to be told that they're wrong. And when it involves their pet, it usually implies another layer of protection where they're upset, because people get really protective of their pets, even if you can obviously tell they don't truly care about how they're treating them. But it is a con. Many people still do not believe or want to accept the realities of pet overpopulation, or blame animal control for killing animals instead of those who create the problems. This is also true. It is a con. Unfortunately, people think that we're the ones who put them down, so it's obviously our fault. That's not true at all. It is a community problem, and it causes a lot of compassion fatigue issues for an employee that works for animal control, regardless of what section that is. A lot of times people think of compassion fatigue, and I'm not sure if any of you guys are aware of what it means or use it very often, but it's basically thick skin. These are some words that are used to kind of describe it. Otherwise, burnout, thick skin. I personally think compassion fatigue is both kind of a burden and a blessing, mainly because once you start your career doing this, it doesn't pay for you to show up at every call for service that you go on and cry with an owner. You're not going to make smart, calculated decisions if you are emotionally connected every single time you show up at a call. So I think that part of it is the blessing part of it, because you start to develop a thick skin and you kind of learn, okay, I have to, detach myself and be professional. But it also hardens you a little bit, where when you should be a normal human being, you lose that. And that is something you're going to have to deal with if you take this. It's kind of comes with the territory of being a first responder. So these are things that you'll need to think about. Another con and a con that is also an issue is social media. So these are also burdens and blessings. So you're going to use social media to your advantage to help you adopt out animals, but social media will also drag you straight through the mud. They will wear you out. And as a government employee, you are not allowed to talk about it. You can't go on in there to defend yourself, because if you do, you could upset your case. You could mess up your case because you'll get emotionally involved and you'll wind up saying something you shouldn't. So you have to learn to control your emotions when it comes to that type of stuff too. So those are some other cons that you're going to deal with. And then obviously the largest one you're going to have to try to overcome and be able to understand and work through is the euthanasia of animals. It does happen. Luckily for me here at where I'm at, the last 20 some odd years, I can't say that for, but for the last year, we were 90% live release rate, which means that every 10 animals that walked in the door, 9 of which got adopted. So that actually made this, it made this last year pretty good, but this isn't something that's normal. We strive for it every year, but it's not always going to be that way. Nothing's perfect. So we're kind of getting close to the end. So just some, how do I get the job questions? So something I haven't touched on that I want to touch on is the use of HAAS, which is Human Animal Support Services. This is relatively new, still in kind of like a pilot program. basically we're starting to treat animal control like a social services department when we're trying to use the donations of money and the donations of equipment and stuff to fix problems in the field and use it as an educational based tool. So if we have an allotment of dog houses and we have a lot of cruelty complaints that are related to dog houses, we try to go out, set the owner up for success. We can provide them certain things, rabies shots, spay neuter surgeries, even all the way down to my dog's injured, if we can find money to try to sort some of these things out. When we have an honest response from an owner that is actually like wanting or needing help, but is just financially strapped and can't make that happen. These are the type of people we're trying to reach. And we're doing so on good faith basis. So, we do this and we hope to get them back on the right path and everything works out. And that's something that, you need to know and study. And I've attached at the bottom, you'll see the website. You should take a look at it because that's kind of the way this is all heading. Does that mean that somebody who did something wrong to an animal along the way doesn't get punished? No, it doesn't work that way. But it is a tool that'll help us help people who can't help themselves. You better have a passion for animals. There's one thing I love, and that's animals. I've had real horses all my life. Love dogs. I thought I'd always, like I said, I thought I'd wind up on a ranch somewhere or as a police officer, but I wound up here at a very, very young age, and I've stayed here for 22 years. And you know what? It was the best fit for me. And I guess you really need to ask yourself, is this something that you can handle and deal with? Because you got to really care about animals. Because the day you stop, this job isn't going to be. It says this job won't be fun for you. Other things you can do is volunteer. Get to know the department you're trying to work for through volunteering. It's a good way to get to know the people inside. It's a good way for them to get to know you. Know the department you're applying for and find out what their focus is on. Is their focus on a HOS support system like what I just explained to you? Are they more enforcement based, which most of us are not heading in that direction? But find out what you're getting yourself into. Do your research and use it to your advantage while you're interviewing. Because there's nothing worse than going into an interview, and I hire people all the time for this job, and then have them just sit there and be like, yeah, dogs are cool, this or that. No, know what you're doing and know what you're saying. That way they know that you have buy-in to what they already believe in, and it helps you get your job that you're trying to get. And also be prepared to continue your education in your chosen profession, because if you want to go work for a police department or an animal control agency that's attached to a HSUS or ASPCA or a sheriff's department or what have you, you're going to have constant education. They're going to require you to have constant education. You're going to, just like I bet money right now that some of you guys are in here listening are here because of that continued education. So, and that's pretty much it for animal control and getting into this field. If you have any questions related to animal services or enforcement or human animal support services, feel free to email me. My email is on here. There's some attachments for ACO1 and ACO2 through NACA. I highly suggest you print those out if you are looking into getting in this field. You can look into these two. I think there are even maybe some like scholarships related to it right now. And then the big one right now, human animal support services as well. That's a really hot topic around the nation. So you really need to look on that and study that. I also attached a printout for that as well, a handout. And Charlotte is one of the tier 1 cities involved in that. So between NACA and then HOS, we try to stay up nationally with everybody so that we're kind of all have the same mission across the country doing the same things. But thank you for attending. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions, sorry I got a little bit slow there in the beginning. I had a monster, and I probably could have fit all this in about 15 minutes. But one last thing, I think you guys are going to have to fill out an evaluation. My wife did one of these a few months ago, and she did really good. So if y'all could jazz mine up so that my score at least beats hers, that would be awesome.
I'm going to tell
Um,
Shannon you said that.
don't you tell Shannon.
um,
Really lay the wood to that thing, though. Come on now. I need y'all to really evaluate the heck out of that. So
Brian,
thank
thank
you.
you so much. This was just a fantastic presentation. You covered things that, I mean, we've worked with NACA for the last 2 or 3 years, and you explained things that I had never heard. So thank you so much. This was just a fantastic overview. And folks,
Sure.
if you're like me and you'd like this webinar, then be sure to check out our whole lineup of webinars on our animal welfare feature page, where you're going to find our next webinar with the great folks from CMPD. Join us right here on July 8th when we'll be learning about how to build and manage an animal fostering program. So if that webinar is of interest to you or your agency, all you need to do is go to the justiceclearinghouse.com website, go to the navigation button called webinars, and then drop down to animal welfare. There you're going to find a whole range of topics for the rest of the year. So do take some time, check those out. We'd love to have you join us. Folks, we do have a number of questions from the audience today, so just in case we don't get to your particular question, do be sure to jot down Brian's email there on the screen. I'm sure he'd be happy to get back to you. Brian, we do have a number of questions for you if you're ready.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Medina was wanting to know, how do you convince your city or your town that there needs to be more staff? In Medina's case, they were talking about how they're filling all kinds of different jobs. They're the groundskeeper, the kennel tech, the vet tech, the shelter manager, the ACO, and basically anything else that the city asks for. How do you build that case to get more staff on hand?
That's a really good question. It is not an easy one because we deal with that same problem here in Charlotte with especially like niche jobs where you're really trying to fill a specific situation, and it's a hard thing. Basically, how we do it is we just write up the request and we send it to our HR department, and we do it repeatedly. And a lot of times it takes a year to fill the one job task we have. Um, if she's running into any issues like we have, they will only allot us so many positions, and we have to like give or take for something. So if she has something she's not using and willing to give up, to get the other position, sometimes
Mm.
that works best. Sometimes we have to lose something to get something. I don't know if it works the same in her county, but that happens to us a lot. So I'll give up. Say I had 38 animal control officer positions originally. I've given up. Now I'm at 32. So you see what I'm
Mhm.
saying? I've given up 6 positions to create 6 new ones throughout the shelter. But it's the game you play in government. It's just how they make you do
Oh, it makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
it. Yeah.
Next question, what kinds of challenges can we expect to find in a new job when we move across state lines? So they're there at Charlotte and they're moving to Colorado. What are some of the
Sure.
challenges in taking this job across state lines?
The biggest challenge is going to just be, the good thing is you'll have a core understanding of how to read law or read ordinance. And
Okay.
these things are prepared and written by attorneys, and we all know exactly what that looks like. It's hard to follow. So your biggest challenge is, one, going to be learning your new city or learning your new area, and then number two is just taking the information you already know and how to read these laws and interpret them in your new counties or cities. And sometimes terminology is a little bit different, so you have to take that into consideration as well.
Got it. Thank you. Are ACOs sworn or are they armed?
That's also a county by county. Here in Charlotte, they are not. But if you go across the state line into South Carolina, their animal services is sworn. So some of them are anyway. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's a county by county or city by city decision. It's not the same everywhere.
Got it. Thank you. Brian, you said that your agency is part of the police department, but are all agencies housed with the police departments, or are some nonprofit organizations, or how are these structured?
Then they're structured. It's the same thing. I hate to keep going back to the same answer, but county by county, like my neighboring county, Union County, it is it's with the sheriff's department. But inside of Mecklenburg County, I have a animal control that is standalone, meaning it's not under the police department. It's just a standalone entity within the government, their city government. And then I have another city inside the county of Mecklenburg, and they are with their they are under their police department's guidance. So it is literally it's all over the spectrum. There's no right answer.
Wow. Excellent. Thank you. Next question. What are some of the key characteristics or personal skills that you look for when hiring an ACO?
That's a good question. So some good character things that I look for. I look for people that can be aggressive, but not towards people or animals, but towards the resolution of a situation. Meaning that government response kind of has a stigma of being slow or lacking resolution. So I look for people who are, they have the motivation to see things through. I look for people who are honest all the time, or at least they are presenting me, at the time of the interview as what they seem to be, an honest person. And you can kind of pick up on these things if you just sit through enough of these. You learn when people are giving you everything they have, or when they're holding back, or when they're using, answers that are, that they've kind of like practiced before they got there. You want to look for somebody who kind of does the right thing when nobody's looking. Now, a lot of these things, I'm basically explaining the perfect person. But people who own their mistakes, people who know animals, who you can tell know animals when they, and I'm not expecting every person, or I'm never going to hire every person that only knows how to deal with animals, because that's not always a good answer either, but those are kind of some of the things I look for.
Outstanding. Thank you. Next question. What are some of the hardest things an ACO has to be able to deal with?
Probably testifying in court, writing reports. I can have, there's a lot of people that are real good with animals, but writing reports, it's amazing how well-rounded you actually really need to be, because you are creating, police reports. That's what you're writing. And, you need to be able to write a good report. You need to be able to testify in court, or at least learn to testify in court. You need a good understanding and comprehension of ordinance and state laws, or at least be able to be educated to understand these things, be able to grasp this knowledge, and then use it and enforce it. But yeah, those are some of the best things.
Got it. Justin's got a great question here. Do tattoos and other body modifications matter in getting hired as an ACO?
It depends. Yes, no. Some agencies, some police departments are way more progressive. Like you can see, like Georgia or other states around the South, some of these larger cities, they allow people with beards and tattoos. My agency does as well, somewhat. They allow some tattoos as long as they're not like, racist or, different things like that, obviously.
Got it.
They have to be certain size-wise. But I mean, it's different for every place. I have tattoos. There's other people that work here have tattoos. It's just, tasteful or cover up, whatever the rules are, you have to follow them.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you. Next question. Are there any special certifications or specialty certifications that you would recommend? So for example, like getting certified to be able to investigate animal fighting cases, those kinds of things.
Yeah, those are, I don't really know if you get cert. So when it comes to dogfighting investigators, most of that happens while you're on the stand, where a judge declares that you are an expert witness. But you can go to study and investigate dogfighting or cruelty situations throughout your career that will basically make you will set you up for success once you get on the stand, to have a judge, consider you as an expert witness, because that's basically what it boils down to. you can go and learn these things and then use them in your investigations. Other trainings like NACAS trainings with ACO1, ACO2, all these trainings touch on this, and then you'll have HSUS has regularly scheduled programs that teach you things about hoarding or dogfighting or all aspects of cruelty. So all these things are good, and they all help build your your resume. But actually being considered an expert, you have to do that on the stand.
Got it. Folks, we have time for just a couple more questions. The next question here, Bryan, are background checks pretty typical when you're getting hired as an ACO?
Yes, everybody
Okay,
usually does it, especially if they're related to any police department or sheriff's department. You're going to get background tested
got it.
or background check.
Perfect.
Sorry, background
No
check.
worries. No worries. You talked about
I was
on the
thinking
job.
polygraph at the same time, so yeah. I mean, some places require that as well. We actually required it up until like a year ago.
Ah, got it. You talked about on the job training. How long do you think it takes for a typical employee to really start getting proficient at the job?
So typical training, like with me, with our facility, it's we do a 16-week FTO, field training officer session, and then I would say usually after about a year, because we can teach you everything you need to know in 16 weeks, but you're not going to know how you yourself as a new officer is going to implement this training until you start doing it alone. So usually, typically after about a year, you'll start feeling extremely comfortable in what you're doing. But 16 weeks is about the frame rate in which you are with someone step by step learning every part of it.
Got it. Folks, we have time for just one more question here. The next question, would you say it's more difficult dealing with the animals or with their owners themselves? What a great
Owners,
question to close out. I had a feeling.
owners with cell phone cameras stuck in your face. That's the hardest thing to do.
I can only imagine. Well, Bryan, thank you so much. What a fantastic presentation today. Loved that Q&A session just then. And folks, and thank you so much. Folks, we're slowing things down here just in time for the holiday and to recover from this heat wave we've been having here in the Pacific Northwest. We hope you too can slow things down over the holiday weekend. Do take some time to rest and relax and recharge those batteries. And please know that we here at Justice Clearinghouse are so very thankful for you, our audience, our great partnerships with our speakers, and our relationships with our amazing associations. Please do know we appreciate everything each and every one of you are doing to help your communities, and we're so very grateful to have you as part of our extended Justice Clearinghouse family. And so with that, this concludes today's Justice Clearinghouse webinar. Have a super rest of your week. Happy 4th of July, everybody, and we'll see you right back here 1 week from Thursday on July 8th. Bye now.